motherfuckers are so in tune with nature that they'll make a bird sound and the bird will show you where the honey is. And then there's a pack of 50 dogs following us, and the dogs aren't pets, they're hunting tools. So the dogs are the first line of defense. They sniff it out, and I'm like, I'm on a fucking insane experience right now. If I walk with one of the kids, it's like him giving me a tour of his house. He's like grabbing a snake and biting his head off. He's like, you want some? He takes out his slingshot, a pebble this big, bam, hits a fucking bush baby out of the tree, breaks his leg, puts it here, he's like, snack for later. And I'm like, I'm on a fucking insane experience right now. There was like a Catholic priest that set up a mission in that area. I met him. He's been trying to convert the Hadza to Catholicism for 20 years. And he's like, they use the Bible pages to smoke.
Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. Look, I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but...
Joe Rogan and President Trump could spend hours tearing apart the polished veneer of a leader cloaked in Midwest courtesy, turning hesitant answers and vague promises into prime comedic fodder. Every sparkling pledge dissolves into delays, detours, and endless committees that study problems without ever solving them. The charm comes off rehearsed, the photo ops feel staged, and the buzzwords never stop. It's the perfect setup for Rogan's biting humor and Trump's ruthless one-liners, exposing politics that masquerades as progress but is frozen in permanent.
Tim Walz is out there talking again.
These are bad guys, though. These are bad guys.
Did you say you could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked their ass. And
I think I could kick most of their ass. I do think that.
They're scared of him because he could fix a truck.
I think I scare them a little bit why they spend so much time on it.
They're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck.
No, I'm serious because I can fix a truck. They know I'm not bullshitting.
Do you? I bet you don't.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock? You don't think it's racism and misogyny?
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're fucked.
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. The guy's a...
Tim Walz navigates politics like every meeting is a chili cook-off, judging contest. The self-satisfied grin, the over-the-top folksiness, the whole I'm just a regular guy who accidentally runs a state. Acted so carefully staged, you half expect him to end every press conference by presenting a freshly baked pie. He's the type who buys overalls purely for photo ops, then drops them off at Goodwill the moment the camera's
a complete pathological liar.
Let's be honest, there are outsiders coming into communities, stealing and moving jobs away, and making life harder for people living there. And they have names, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square, lied about being a head coach of a football team.
Because this started, and I love this story, as a young prosecutor. Kamala Harris talked about going in that courtroom for the first time.
Pathological liars, people that are habitual liars, they just lie all the time about everything. Yeah. Oh, you didn't deploy for war. You didn't. Why are you saying you deployed at war? The weapons you used in war? No, you weren't in war.
I plan on waking up on November 6th with Madam President.
I want to be clear, you won't be waking up together.
No, you weren't a head coach, you were the water boy. What the f*** are you talking about?
I thought somebody...
Joe Rogan would size up Walz's track record and see a strange hybrid, part survivalist who binged one too many government pamphlets, part high school principal who insists on being called coach despite never actually coaching a game. Walz speaks with the gusto of someone unveiling a groundbreaking idea. Yet he's really just describing something anyone could figure out by reading a toaster.
Seen that? No. The video of him taking down the Minnesota flag and he replaced it with the new flag that looks a lot like the Somali flag. Minnesota has a huge population of Somalis in it.
Oh, wait a minute.
So he gets the flag, picks it up, moves it out of the way, and replaces it. Look at this.
There, that's better.
Why is that better?
President Trump sees Walz as the quintessential politician who confuses slow-talking sincerity with actual confidence. Every speech leans heavily on that syrupy Midwest charm, hoping nobody notices the policies are about as solid as a dollar store lawn chair. His big moves feel like they were scribbled on the back of a diner napkin by someone 3 cups deep into weak coffee, utterly convinced they've just solved the economy.
Modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye. Just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans.
I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if The governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with
Rogan wouldn't need to dig far to roast Walz. Just pointing out that his economic vision boils down to tossing taxpayer money at whatever buzz project crosses his desk would be enough. Walz slaps words like community and equity onto every spending package like a politician's duct tape, hoping no one notices the budget bleeding cash faster than a storm battered.
This is what people love about Donald Trump, the fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have, period, but then I met Tim Walz.
Single quotes S-jabs would slice straight through Walz's man of the people image. This is a guy who never misses a chance to tout his National Guard services if that alone makes him an infallible leader. Walz talks about it like he single-handedly won a war armed with grit and a thermos of coffee, when in reality he left before his unit even deployed to Iraq. That little detail, of course, doesn't fit the heroic story he recycles every campaign season. His political instincts are so predictable. Rogan could script his next press conference blindfolded. Step 1. Speak slowly enough that the audience thinks they're hearing a bedtime story. Trump would tear into his economic strategy, which resembles Minnesota's version of a yard sale prices all wrong. Items scattered, and by the end, you're wondering why you even showed up. Walz somehow manages to tout bold promises of growth and innovation while simultaneously strangling small businesses under a pile of regulations heavy enough to serve as doorstops.
And honestly, it was a very nice looking family. But his brother endorsed me, and the whole family endorsed me. I said, who are all the people? There's something weird with that guy. He's a weird guy. JD is not weird. He's a solid rock. I happen to be a very solid rock. We're not weird.
Rogan would have a field day with Walz's approach. Too crime-like, trying to put out a house fire with a spray bottle. Walz responds to rising crime stats with speeches about togetherness and understanding, as if a carefully worded paragraph could stop someone from breaking into your car. He treats public safety like a social experiment, with results about as reassuring as an open mic night in a biker bar. Trump would mock Walz's attempts to play bipartisan peacemaker, which somehow pleases absolutely no one. This is a man who turned emergency response into a full season of political theater, long meandering speeches about resilience, contradictory rules that make as much sense as wearing a raincoat in the shower, and a talent for declaring victory over problems still very much ongoing. If there were an award for overcomplicating the simplest decisions, Walz would have a trophy shelf.
Big one, man.
Stolen valor and all that stuff.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August. Can you explain that discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke. And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the army and allowed his unit to go without
PR stunts, staged community visits, carefully photographed appearances at local events, pure political cosplay. He plays the down-home problem solver while governing like someone trying to win a popularity contest in a town he only visits during election season. The guy could make a trip to a farmer's market look like a campaign commercial. Rogan would tear into Walz's habit of making it sound like he's solving problems while merely describing them in a soothing tone. The political equivalent of telling someone their house is on fire but calling it a warm glow. He's perfected the art of comforting language that goes nowhere, talking about progress as if it's always just around the corner, yet somehow never arriving. Rogan could compare it to a DIY YouTube project that looked good in theory but ended up entirely held together with duct tape. Roads still crumbling, transit projects dragging on like bad reality TV, and budgets ballooning.
And honestly, it was a very nice looking family. But his brother endorsed me, and the whole family endorsed me. I said, who are all the people? There's something weird with that guy. He's a weird guy. JD is not weird. He's a solid rock. I happen to be a very solid rock. We're not weird. We're other things perhaps, but we're not weird. But he is a weird guy. He walks on the stage. There's something wrong with that guy. And he called me weird. And then the fake news media picks it up. That was the word of the day. Weird, weird, weird. They're all going, but we're not weird guys. We're very solid people that want our country to be great again. I mean, it's...
Trump would mock Walz's obsession with buzzwords and policy announcements. He can't introduce a bill without cramming it full of words like transformative, inclusive, and comprehensive, as if stacking adjectives could mask a total lack of results. It's political seasoning without the meat of flavor, nothing to chew on. Rogan would rip into Walz's habit of blaming opponents for every roadblock, even when his own party isn't on board. It's like watching a coach blame the refs for a loss when half the team didn't show up. Instead of negotiating, he leans on the victim narrative until it reads like a Facebook post from your most dramatic aunt. Trump would also hammer Walz's regular guy act. The more he insists he's just like the people he serves, the more it feels like a removable costume. The crisp suits, staged smiles, practiced pauses, it's all meticulously crafted to hide the fact that he's just another career politician, dressed in Minnesota nice.
He lost an election. He played a part. You know, usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of...
Walz's approach to education would be prime material for ridicule. Rogan would point out that his grand reforms sound impressive until you check the results, which often fall flat. It's like unveiling a revolutionary workout program that's really just walking in place for 20 minutes. There's endless talk about equity and opportunity, but execution crawls under layers of bureaucratic red tape. Trump would mock how Walz handles criticism, treating every negative headline as an excuse to double down on the same failed ideas. Zero action, just a press release about how the process is ongoing. He's turned governing into an endless group project where nothing ever gets turned in on time. Trump would also hammer Walz's energy policy, which tries to please both environmentalists and industry leaders and ends up angering both. It's like promising a vegan meal that somehow contains bacon. Nobody leaves happy.
Phone, I know some of you know this on the iPhone. They've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping.
I mean, that guy was almost the vice president of the United States. I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, "I need a vice president that's dumber than me." And then it's Biden, and Biden saying, "I need a vice president dumber than me," and it's Kamala saying, "I need a vice president."
Rogan wouldn't miss how Walz dodges accountability behind a veneer of Midwestern politeness. He nods, smiles, and says all the right things while quietly sidestepping any real ownership of mistakes. Political Aikido at its finest. Redirecting criticism without ever absorbing it. Trump would hammer Walz's steady and pragmatic leadership, which is really just reactive and safe. He's not a bold decision maker, he's a political weather vane, shifting just enough to catch whatever wind blows, never committing to a real course. Walz's national ambitions would be shredded. Rogan would note that his attempts to step onto the national stage feel like a small-town mayor headlining Madison Square Garden, technically possible, but painfully out of place. Trump would mock his overconfidence, treating a high Minnesota approval rating like it signals national dominance. It's small pond thinking from a man who thinks he's ready for the ocean. Sand, just when you think the roast has run its course, there's always more. Misplaced priorities, overpromising and underdelivering, a reliance on optics over outcomes, a never-ending buffet of political mediocrity masquerading as competence.
Who's radical from Minnesota, that's the vice president, who he believes a lot of wild things. One of them is transgender surgery for people who are under 13. Another one is abortion up until 9 months.
Walz's transportation agenda is a textbook example of style over substance. He unveils glossy proposals with slick renderings and grand promises, but once the cameras leave, it's all detours and budget overruns. Deadlines are treated like polite suggestions, turning every project into a waiting game that would try the patience of even the most laid-back motorist. His rural outreach is just as absurd. He shows up in small towns like a traveling salesman, peddling government solutions nobody asked for. He'll hold a press conference to assure you he's listening, but ask for specifics and you get a tangle of half-answers wrapped in feel-good phrases. It's the political equivalent of reading the back of a cereal box. Lots of words, zero useful information. Walz has perfected the art of looking accountable while keeping you far enough away that results